Welcome to Top Amazing Fact. I've heard all the stories about people stumbling upon priceless treasures at thrift shops. But what do I find? Melted breath mints stuffed in the pockets of old clothes. Still, I can't help but stay hopeful, inspired by those lucky few who make jaw-dropping discoveries. Imagine finding a copy of the Declaration of Independence, later valued at nearly $500,000, or coming across a Jackson Pollock painting worth millions, all tucked away in some dusty corner. Get ready to be amazed as we dive into the stories of 15 of the luckiest people who struck gold in thrift stores. Number 15, Vince Lombardi Sweater. A lot of people hit up thrift stores looking for clothes to flip online, but not everyone hits the jackpot like Sean and Ricky McAvoy. They scored a West Point sweater for just 58 cents. When they got home, Ricky noticed it had some moth holes and figured they couldn't sell it. So, she tossed it in the basement, thinking she might fix it up one day for Sean to wear. They both totally forgot about it until one day, while watching TV, they spotted a similar sweater being worn by legendary football coach Vince Lombardi. That sparked a memory, and when they checked the sweater, they discovered Lombardi written on a tag inside. Sean even drove all the way to Dallas to get it authenticated. Turns out, it really did belong to the famous coach. They ended up selling the sweater at auction for over $43,000. Talk about the most valuable moth-eaten sweater ever. Number 14, $26 bag. Retired chef John Richard was browsing through a charity shop in Oxfam, England, when he came across a one-of-a-kind bag. It was brown and had stylized images of Elvis printed on it, designed by none other than Andy Warhol. The price? A steep £20. Richard tried to haggle with the clerk, but she wouldn't budge. Eventually, he gave in and bought the bag anyway. Curious about its origins, he took it to a local Philip Tracy shop to see if they had made it. The store manager, G. Brunette, confirmed it was one of theirs and mentioned that only about 10 of those bags had ever been made. Soon after, Richard started getting offers from buyers in China, with bids coming in at $250,000 and even £350,000, about $500,000. Safe to say, he's probably thrilled he didn't walk away over a £5 discount. Number 13, a painting bought for $3. A man from South Carolina, known only as Leroy, picked up a painting from Goodwill, but he wasn't really interested in the art. He was drawn to the frame, thinking it alone was worth about $50, so a $3 price tag felt like a steal. Leroy, a former antiques dealer, figured the oil painting itself might bring in another $100 if he sold it online. But when his daughter-in-law brought it to the Antiques Roadshow, they got some jaw-dropping news. The painting wasn't just some random piece, it was a Flemish school painting from 1650, valued at $20,000 to $30,000. That's impressive, but it didn't stop there. When it went to auction, international bidders pushed the final price to $190,000. Meanwhile, over in Indiana, another man bought a painting from a thrift shop for a simple reason: he needed to cover a hole in his wall. He paid $30 for it, not thinking much about the piece itself. One day, while playing a game about famous works of art, he noticed something familiar. It turned out that his hole hider was actually a painting by Martin Johnson Heade, an American still-life artist. That painting sold for a staggering $1.2 million. Sure, he's left with a hole in his wall, but now he's got more than enough money to buy a whole new wall, and then some. Number 12, Barack Obama Award. Former US President Barack Obama has received countless awards over the years, including the Nobel Peace Prize in 2009. But high-ranking officials like presidents receive so many honors, they often can't keep track of them all. In 2017, a Reddit user stumbled upon something unusual while browsing a thrift store: a plaque showing that Obama had received the National Middle School Association's Distinguished Service Award in November 2007. The person even thought about tweeting the former president to see if he wanted it back. However, according to a press release, Obama may have never even received the plaque. On the date listed on the award, he was actually in Iowa, hosting a discussion on the challenges faced by working women. If the thrifty shopper decides to sell the plaque, hopefully, they'll turn it into some decent cash. If not, maybe they should keep their eyes peeled for that Nobel Prize instead. Number 11, a cup and a bowl. In 2013, a shopper in Sydney picked up an odd-looking cup for just $4. Not thinking much of it, he later sent a picture to Sotheby's, where they gave him some shocking news. It was actually a 17th century Chinese libation cup, carved from rhino horn. This rare find ended up selling for around $60,000. In another case, a family bought what looked like an ordinary bowl, something you might mistake for a small ashtray. They paid only $3 for it back in 2007. After doing some research, they took it to Sotheby's, where experts estimated its value at $200,000 to $300,000. But when it went up for auction, a bidder paid a whopping $2 million. The bowl turned out to be a 1,000-year-old Chinese ding bowl. I'm sure that thrifty family was completely bowled over by their windfall. Number 10, an expensive egg. A scrap dealer purchased a Fabergé for $14,000, which doesn't sound cheap. However, he recognized it was real gold and felt he could profit by melting the egg down and selling the precious metal. Fortunately, he first conducted some research and discovered this particular egg was a gift from Russian Tsar Alexander III to his wife, Maria Fyodorovna, in 1887. Once he had it authenticated, the piece ultimately sold for $33 million. An excellent profit on his $14,000 investment. Number 9, Declaration of Independence. One day, Michael Sparks stumbled upon an old, yellowed, rolled-up piece of paper at a thrift store. After carefully unrolling it, he realized it was a copy of the Declaration of Independence. At least, that's what he thought. It was so intricately detailed that at first, he assumed it was an engraving. When he asked the clerk, she told him it was priced at just $2.48. So, he bought it. After doing some research and bringing it to an auction house, experts confirmed it wasn't a cheap replica. It was the real deal, an official copy printed in 1820. Until Sparks made his discovery, only 35 copies were known to exist. His find made it 36. He later sold the Declaration at auction for a jaw-dropping $477,650. That's a whole lot of Ben Franklin's. Now, the new owner just has to keep it hidden from Nicolas Cage. Number 8, photo worth millions. Randy Guiara was browsing his favorite shop when he came across a box of Tintype's old photographs. He picked out a few he liked and paid just $3 for them. When he got home, he pulled out a magnifying glass and took a closer look at the photos. In one of them, he spotted none other than Outlaw Billy the Kid. He called his wife over, and together they realized the photo also included other members of Billy's gang. Over the next year, they worked to authenticate the image, eventually identifying all 18 people in the picture and even locating the ruins of the building they posed in front of. A similar photo had sold for $2.3 million at auction in 2011, and Randy went on to insure his for $5 million. Number 7, charity shop clothing. A bride-to-be wanted a good deal on a wedding dress. Her friend suggested she check out a local charity shop, and she was in luck. They just received a big donation of wedding dresses from a local boutique. One dress had a 1,595-pound tag but was only 25 pounds at the charity store. It fit the bride like a glove, and she left happy and hopefully spent the more than 1,500 pounds she saved on a seriously awesome wedding cake. Number 6, an $8 video game. Keeping an eye on the news about valuable antiques can really pay off, and it certainly did for Jennifer Thompson from Charlotte, North Carolina. In 2013, while browsing her local Goodwill, she spotted an NES game behind the counter for $7.99. It was an 80s cartridge called Stadium Events, and the name rang a bell. Thompson remembered hearing a story about a rare game that had sold for thousands of dollars. Since only a small number of copies were ever produced, the game is incredibly hard to find and worth a lot. She rushed across the street to McDonald's to use their Wi-Fi and quickly confirmed her suspicion. Thompson hurried back to Goodwill and bought the game, later selling it on GameGabble.com for a whopping $25,000. Number 5. Valuable books. These examples are a reminder to always check inside books when you're thrifting. You never know what you might find. One lucky Goodwill shopper came across what looked like an autographed copy of A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking, complete with a fingerprint. Sounds incredible, right? Well, not so fast. Some sharp-eyed commenters pointed out that due to Hawking's disabilities, he hadn't been able to handwrite anything since the 1980s. Given that the book was dated 1996, the signature likely belongs to someone else. As for the mysterious fingerprint, no one has been able to identify it yet. In another case, a thrifter's uncle grabbed a copy of Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. It turned out to have a handwritten note inside. And surprisingly, it's pretty legible for a guy who was famous for saying, "Write drunk, edit sober." Number 4. A valuable splash of paint. Terry Horton was on the hunt for a funny gift to cheer up a friend when she came across what she thought was a large, ugly painting at a thrift store. She haggled the price down to $5, and her friend definitely got a laugh out of it. But when the painting didn't fit in her friend's house, it was returned to Horton, who eventually tried to sell it at her own yard sale. There, an art teacher happened to notice it and said it looked like a Jackson Pollock. Horton's response? Who the frick is Jackson Pollock? Curious, she did some digging and realized Pollock was a massively famous artist, and his paintings were worth a frickin' fortune. Determined to see if her painting was the real deal, Horton hired a forensic expert who found a fingerprint on the back of the canvas that matched one on a verified Pollock painting. Despite this, the art world refused to authenticate her find. She was even offered $9 million for it, but she turned it down, confident that it was worth $50 million. Yes, you heard that right, 50 frickin' million. 25 years later, she's still waiting for someone to pay up. Number 3. A rare diving watch. Zach Norris wasn't even looking for a watch when he went into Goodwill, he was there for a golf cart. But a quick detour to the watch section changed everything. Digging through the usual pile of cheap watches, he spotted a gem, a 1959 Jaeger-LeCoultre deep-sea alarm watch. Only 900 of these watches were ever made, and Norris knew immediately it was worth way more than the $5.99 Goodwill was asking for it. He had it authenticated by a dealer, and sure enough, he was right. He ended up selling it online for $35,000, plus he scored a $4,000 Megger Speedmaster watch as part of the deal. Talk about a thrift store find worth keeping an eye out for. And sometimes, the treasures you find aren't just valuable, they're personal. One shopper found a painting in a thrift store that looked eerily like him, right down to the red sweater and glasses. Another lucky thrifter discovered the perfect t-shirt, featuring a picture of a guy who looked like his exact twin, same brown hair, beard, and glasses. The caption? Hipster. Never has a caption been more spot on. Number 1. A loaded purse. Finding something worth a lot of money is always exciting, but sometimes, it's even better to just find the money itself. One shopper bought an old purse at a thrift store and was thrilled to discover it came with a little bonus cash. When she shared her find online, commenters pointed out that the bills looked brand new and might even be worth more than their face value. Talk about a lucky score. What's the best thing you've ever discovered at a thrift store? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.